And then, of course, if you buy great Bordeaux at that moment, 2.5 years after the market, let's say half a year after it's bottled or something like that, then the wine is not even in an infant stage. It's more like a fetus. You can't drink that, actually. It's ridiculous. After 8 years, the wine is beginning to, I don't know, it's like a baby that begins to walk, maybe, you know. We're talking about, but Latour is maybe not a good example. It's a good example because they left the Primeur system. But Latour is, of course, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, red wine in the world. And that wine needs ages, you know. So it is great to taste Latour in the first 10 years. But if you buy it, I wouldn't drink it in the first 20 years, to be honest.
I tasted Latour 59 and 61.
Okay.
And these are the oldest wines, and I think oldest and only that old aged wine that I tasted in my life.
Well,
But
that's
obviously,
not bad, actually, to
that
have
not
those
bad,
wines
right?
as your oldest
Exactly.
wines. No, no.
Not bad, but the thing is, like, because I'm not really much experience with Latour and the other big top groves, I cannot really assess the difference between 59, 61 or kind of analyze it. But what I remember from tasting them, that I could like keep thinking about layers and layers of aromas, and I mean the fruit still was there, and really nice balance.
Sure, sure. And the wines become very delicate, funny enough. I mean, when they're young, they're quite brutal. They're awfully tannic. They've got 100% new oak, whatever. They're very acid. That's Bordeaux. And then at the end, they are totally elegant, very light, very fine. The tannins have melted away, and you get something completely different. And in that respect, that kind of red wine, that's not the acidity of Bordeaux, of course, but that kind of tannic red wine gives the finest result with time. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But also, like, yes, that kind of tannic red wine gives the finest results with time. But then what about Burgundy? Red Burgundies can age years and years and years.
Definitely, definitely, and they're less tannic. Yeah? That's absolutely true. But I think because of that, you could say that they age a bit faster. They're a bit earlier consumable compared to Bordeaux, and they will at the end maybe age a little bit less long. So in my experience, comparing very old Burgundy with very old Bordeaux, there comes a point where Burgundy stops, but Bordeaux still manages to take the extra step. And my theory is that it's the tannins that make the difference at that moment.
There's another question that we passed. Gonja is asking differently all, I mean, okay, I will read the entire question. Do you think the sorted and more drinkable wines, by changing winemaking techniques, cause to lose aromas of aging compared with the old techniques?
To some extent, but not completely. Not completely. As I said before, there was a worry that with changing winemaking techniques, let's define what that means. Changing winemaking techniques nowadays means that wines have more fruit compared to the early days. Tannins are from the start riper, you know. So basically, people are harvesting riper grapes than they did 50 years ago. And there was a worry that because of that, the wines wouldn't age that well anymore. But I don't think that's true. I think the wines nowadays are generally speaking much better because the quality of the tannin is better. And if the tannins are not of good quality from the start, they will never become good with aging. And that was the misunderstanding of the past. And if you look at the great Bordeaux's that aged really wonderfully, they all came from great vintage with perfect tannin quality. No. What I also notice is that for example, in a region like Piemonte, where I was quite surprised 2 years ago to notice that every winemaker has his own philosophy and winemaking techniques, and that there is much more diversity in thinking and in the approach of winemaking compared to, for example, Bordeaux. In Bordeaux, winemaking is pretty much standardized, I would say. But in Piemonte, you found a lot of differentiation. But I'm convinced that if you compare the different styles of winemaking after 20 or 30 years, you will notice that what seemed at the beginning a very big difference has actually become a very small difference with time. It seems to me, I could be wrong, but it seems to me that with time, winemaking techniques sort of disappear in the wine. Yeah.
But also, I think now we can maybe make a comparison between old world versus new world wines in terms of aging. Maybe one of the reasons that so far, like the great and with aging potential, great aging potential wines are new old world, because in new world still they don't have really established techniques, or still kind of little bit experimenting, or not enough history.
Maybe not enough history, but let's say that from my experience with aged old world wines, and I did taste, for example, beautifully aged old Napa Valley wines from the 70s, for example. Not much older than that, but from the 70s. I tasted old vintage of Grange, and these wines aged wonderfully, actually. And there's also the interesting thought about what does it make a difference whether the wine was acidified or not. And we would like to think, I think we all would like to think, that naturally acidic wines age better than the acidified wines. But there's no proof for that. And I have a very good example, because if you take the old-fashioned Gran Reservas, the wines like Castillo de Gay in the old days, Castillo de Gay was massively acidified. Incredible levels, believe me. So I remember tasting Castillo de Gay from the 1940s, really old bottles, and it had a wonderful acidity, and a beautiful complexity, but they were massively acidified.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I would never imagine that. I would never think that acidified wine would.
But if you think about it, it couldn't be different, It couldn't be different in Spain. Wines with a Rioja with that much acidity, because the guy had a lot of acidity. If you think about it, it couldn't be natural. But they aged beautifully. And I'm not sure, I don't know it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is the same for Vega Sicilia in the old vintages, and maybe still in current vintages, but less so.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, we cannot know unless we go there in the lab and see. There was one question. Let's do that. I think it is the last question. Without tasting a wine, how can you know what wine can age? I think maybe we can maybe use a rule of thumb, and then saying that there are obviously exceptions.
Yeah. Well, the wine should have a very good quality from the start.
Which we'll talk about on Wednesday, quality in wine.
Yeah, exactly. But if the quality isn't there from the start, you'll never have a wine that is capable of developing something much better than that. And it's not like that a young Chateau Latour is a rather ordinary wine, but if you wait long enough, it becomes great. Latour is great from the start. So there has to be something in that wine from the start.
Okay.
But we talked about balance before, and I think it is about balance, because there are wines with acidity that age very well, but acidity per se is not the reason why the wine ages, because buy a €5 Muscadet, got a lot of acidity,
but it will never age.
So that's what I mean.
Yeah.
But acidity is it's the balance in which acidity certainly plays a role. That is for sure. Sweet wines that age wonderfully, like Tokay, Sauternes, the sweet Rieslings from Germany that age better than anything else.
Alsace, Vintage Tardive.
Yeah, there's less experience there, because there's less less habit of doing that. But yes, of course, yeah. So sweetness seems to help. But in a way, you know, I would say you have to start with a really good wine to have something that is making it worth age for a longer time. That's for sure.
Also oak. Does it kind of stabilize the wine a little bit, like the oxygenation and also the tannins from the oak? Maybe it's kind of
For red
stabilizing.
wines,
Yeah, for red wines.
yeah, but red wines age, generally speaking, anyway, better than whites because of the tannins. And as you well know, every really good red wine spent time in oak now and in the past as well, with very, very, very few exceptions.
Examples.
So I'm not sure actually if oak is really a factor that contributes to aging. It seems more the other way around, that many age-worthy wines have spent in oak because they're tannic wines, but or red wines. But the oak itself, I'm not sure. I don't think so actually. I don't think so. No.
Okay.
And in white, I mean, in white wines we have the proof with the great German Rieslings that it's not the oak that makes them age. It has nothing to do with it because a lot of them do not see any oak or only very, very old oak.
Okay.
So no, I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe we can one day talk about Rieslings. I like Riesling.
Oh
One of
yes,
my favorites.
we should. We should.
Great.
We should.
Okay. I think our time's up. No? Do you want to add
Okay.
something else?
No.
I